Hey everyone, welcome to Everyday Infertility. This is your host, Savannah Keys. In today's episode, we're just kicking off the podcast. I'm here to let you know what is Everyday Infertility, what you can expect from this podcast, and what is the mission and vision. I am super excited that you all have decided to spend your next 20 or so minutes with me, and I can't wait for what's to come. So, what is Everyday Infertility and how did it get started? Everyday Infertility, especially this podcast, has been something that I have sat on for 6+ months. Me and my husband have been going through infertility for the past almost 3 years. And I will get into our backstory and my history and diagnosis in our next episode. But this thought has been something that I have sat on for 6 months, maybe longer. And I didn't share it with anyone. To be honest, I was nervous and scared to put my life story out there. But when I first went through infertility, I looked for resources like this. And I really just found scientific journals, and everything I read was coming from the science background. And while that's great and awesome and amazing, looking to hear stories from people that were just like me, starting out in their journey, having no idea what's going on, or in the midst of their journey and sharing uplifting stories and, honestly, just venting. I was looking for the real world side of it. So about 6 months ago, I thought, what if I started a podcast? And like I said, I sat on that idea for a very long time until I shared it with my husband and my best friend. I shared it with my husband one morning super early. We were awake in the bathroom brushing our teeth, and I paused and I said, I think I want to start a podcast. Now, granted, I did not give him any context on what it was going to be on, but I just remember he looked at me and laughed. And in that moment, I was like, okay, I am never sharing this idea with anyone ever again. A couple weeks later, we were in Texas and I was visiting my best friend and we were furniture shopping. And I remember we walked into the store and I was like, I have to tell her, I have to get her thoughts. And I said, Caitlin, I have to tell you something and I'm so embarrassed and I want your thoughts and opinions. And she was like, okay, tell me. And I was like, no, come with me. And I took her by the hand and walked her to the back of the store because I did not want anyone to hear. And I said, I think I want to start a podcast. And she was like, okay. And I was like, I think I want to start a podcast on infertility. And she was like, you have to do it. I think you would be so great at it. I think you would help so many people. I think that would be the resource that others need that you looked for. And so that was on a Saturday. That Sunday, I got home and I went into full-blown research mode. How do you start a podcast? What equipment do you need? Anything and everything about it, I researched, and within a week, I had bought all the equipment. Now, like I said, granted, I didn't tell my husband really the details of the podcast, but once I circled back to the topic and told him what it was about, he was extremely supportive. He was like, do it. Absolutely. I'm fully behind you. Let's do this thing. So in that moment, Everyday Infertility was born. And since then, I've just been working fearlessly and tirelessly to get this started. So as far as the mission and vision of Everyday Infertility, I think this is something that will always be in the works, but something that is so near and dear to my heart is being a resource devoted to helping navigate through everyday infertility. Whether it be the ups or the downs or everything in between, I plan to be a resource for those starting out in their infertility journey, those deep in the midst of their infertility journey, those who have came out on the other side, and honestly, for those supporting from the sidelines. I want to share my story and other stories, and I want to speak about all different types of diagnoses and journeys and stories and outcomes. So anyone going through this infertility battle has a place to come and hear from real people all over the world who might have a story like theirs, or who might be able to give them hope, or, just be a resource for as they're going through this and speaking with their doctors or their spouse or their family or their friends, and knowing what next step to take or what questions to ask, or is there anyone else out there like me? Because I know how lonely this journey can feel. And I also know that it's hard to find people in your direct circle or in your life that you can talk to about this, because this isn't a topic that's spoken about often. And that is my goal, is to bring awareness to this topic and make infertility less taboo. You've seen all of the statistics, 1 in 4, 1 in 8, 1 in whatever the stat is. I want it to be where, yes, you may be a statistic, you may be 1 in 4, you may be 1 in 8, but here is a resource and a place for you to feel like you're not 1 in whatever. You're just another person, and there are people out there just like you with the same struggles, the same journeys, from the same walks of life. So what can you expect to hear on Everyday Infertility? This is what I'm so excited about. I can share my journey all day long. I can tell my story. I can tell my diagnosis, but that's only going to help such a small percent of the world. I plan to share my journey and my spouse's journey and story, and a lot of different perspectives. I'm going to have episodes on here where my husband shares what his journey has been like in his side of this experience. I'm going to share from my friends. What has their experience been? How have they helped support me from the sidelines? What do they ask? What do they not ask? How do they support you? I want this to be a resource where you hear stories that maybe line up with your journey, but you can also share this with loved ones or people in your life who may not really know what you're going through, or how to support you, or what questions to ask. As we kick off this podcast, I want to interview anyone and everyone, from those who just started in their trying to conceive journey and don't really know what to do to be proactive, those who have struggled for a while with infertility and are looking to take that next step, those who have struggled with infertility for a while and are going through or have gone through IUIs, IVF, any type of fertility treatment, different diagnoses such as PCOS, endometriosis, the list goes on, and those from other backgrounds as well. So same-sex marriages, adoptions. The list of infertility is unfortunately very long, but I am hoping to share so many people's stories here on this podcast. And before we wrap, I just want to preface one thing. This is a safe space. Here at Everyday Infertility, we are going to laugh, cry, cuss, mess up. I will probably say the wrong thing from time to time. All of that to be said, I want to preface, I am not a doctor. I am not a licensed professional. I'm just here sharing my stories and those of others. And with that, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I truly appreciate every single person who has taken the time to follow along with Everyday Infertility, share it with loved ones, family, friends, strangers, and take time to listen to this podcast. It truly is such a passion project of mine, and I hope that this just helps one person out there. So for those of you who have spent any time with Everyday Infertility, my hopes is that we together can change the stigma and the status around infertility. Moving forward, you're going to hear a lot of episodes from me, but I also want to hear what you all want to hear from this podcast. So please feel free to reach out to me via email at everydayinfertility@gmail.com and follow along on Instagram at everydayinfertility. You can find this podcast anywhere where you find podcasts. So Google, Spotify, and Apple. If there is also a platform that you want to hear this on, let me know. Send me an email, send me an Instagram DM, whatever works for you. Again, thank you guys so much, and I can't wait to see where the rest of this goes.